Hey everybody, what's happening here on this just blustery November day we're having out there? All right, let's see. I'll give a few shout outs in the chat. Hey, I'm going to give a few chat shout outs. I need to ask everybody a favor. Everybody here who has access to a Facebook page, namely your own, if you would get on and make an announcement that tomorrow morning's services will be on YouTube for First Light, and Awaken will be out here in the parking lot. Also going to be live streamed on Facebook Live tomorrow. So if you would say something to that effect on your Facebook page, that would be awesome. All right. So having said that, let me give you shout outs here tonight. Amy Hogshead, congratulations on being the first comment tonight. Happy Saturday to everyone, and virtual hugs, because that's the only safe way we can do it anymore. Hey, Jess Skinner, a long time no see, right? It's been 20 minutes or something. Angie Myers is here. Jess is asking about the duck. I walked out to check on. We have a duck in the one-way street behind the church. Was just sitting on one of the manhole covers. I walked over there to check on him, and he just walked away from me. He didn't try to run. He didn't try to fly. He just walked away from me. His wings looked okay. He didn't look injured or anything. So I'll go out and check on him after the live stream tonight. So I don't know what was going on with him, but he just walked away in a super duck fashion, I guess. Hey, Scott Moran. Hey, DW. Let's see. Hey, Dave and Amy. Hi, Daryl Louth. See, Teresa is here. Jess Mack is also here. How you doing, Jess? Amy says, Happy Mother's Day to all the fantastic women. Now, just for clarity's sake, Amy, are you only saying Happy Mother's Day to fantastic women or all women? Little clarification would be helpful on that. And Teresa echoes that. Tina Bird says, good evening. Hey, how you doing, Mike? Marcia and Joe are just being the tech-savvy couple that they are. Got their hands washed and ready to go. Awesome. Hey, Bill Har. Bill Har, did you get my text tonight? I added you to the list, so tell me if you got the text. Tim and Candy are in the house. Susan Eggery says, happy Saturday. Hi, Doug and Margie. Hi, Candy. Bill and Crystal are in the house. Hi, Christina. How you doing? Hi, Audra Sutton. Glad to have you. And Amy says all women. Okay, so even if you don't happen to be fantastic, Amy Hogshead still wants you to have a happy Mother's Day, and I think that is super sweet. So, all right, cool. Okay, a couple things that were supposed to happen today. First of all, I was supposed to get a couple of books in the mail. I do not have them yet. So what am I going to do? I really wanted to start the Christian Atheist tomorrow, but I don't have books yet. How many of you, if we start Christian Atheist tomorrow, how many of you who want a copy of the book will not have one by tomorrow? Please jump in the chat and tell me that. How many of you who are looking forward to starting the Christian Atheist? I know some people don't buy the book, which is entirely fine, but if you want a copy of it, I want to give you a chance to have it. How many of you in the chat, if I started the Christian Atheist tomorrow, how many of you would not have a book? Amy says yes. I'm not sure what yes means. How many of you would not have a book? The Christian Atheist do not have a copy. Who would want a copy of it will not have a copy of it by tomorrow. I know Tim Dickey told us how to. Okay, Joyce would be one. Yes, I have them ordered. I just don't have them yet. They're on their way from, one set's on the way from Utah, and the other one was supposedly come from Toledo. I was supposed to get them today, and I don't have them yet. So I need to know. Maybe we could do an introduction tomorrow, and hopefully I'll have them by Tuesday. Okay, that's enough of you would not have a book. All right, we probably won't start the Christian Atheist tomorrow until I get books in and can get them distributed. We will What will we do tomorrow? All right, tell you what. Yeah, we could do the sermon tomorrow. Tell you what, I'm going to give you all an option because this is a democracy that we have here on our evening live streams. Everybody gets a vote, so we could either discuss the sermon, or we could continue on through the book of Daniel and finish the weird chapters at the end. I'll offer you both options. If you'd like to read the rest of Daniel, which would give us, like 5 or 6 more chapters. Some weird kind of bizarre imagery, some really book of Revelation type stuff. That's the second half of Daniel. If you want to do that, everybody gets a vote. So, all right, so Marion votes for Daniel. So tell me Daniel or something else. If there's another Bible character you want to do. Okay, I got 2 for Daniel, 1 for sermon. What else you got? Everybody jump in the chat, vote. Finish Daniel or sermon. You can't vote for both, Teresa. All right, Scott Moran says sermon. Dave and Candy say Daniel. Okay, for those of you who are not in the chat, if you want to text me and tell me your vote, my phone is open. So text me your vote. If you're not a chat person. Daniel, I'm seeing a lot of Daniel and a couple of sermons. Okay, Bill Hart got the text. Excellent. All right, so everybody vote. I need to know, finish Daniel or go with something else. I've seen a lot of Daniel votes. Daniel, okay. If we finish Daniel, you guys are accepting the weirdness that's going to come from that, okay? Just know that you are wishing this upon yourself. And I tried to warn you, but you're still demanding these things. So I'm perfectly happy to provide. Okay. To all of you who live locally, which means not Teresa Bitters, I will make arrangements to bring you books when I have them. Tina likes weird. All right. Well, let Mike know that. Daniel, because weird is okay. Well, there you go. So I'm hoping that when I get home tonight, I'll have those books because they were supposed to be delivered today. 2 of the books were supposed to be delivered today. If they are, Teresa Bitters gets one of them because she lives really far away. And then I'll give the other one to somebody. And then when I get the rest, I only have 7 coming. So 7 more coming. Mike typed it. Okay. So Mike goes right under the bus on that one. Cool. All right. Weird can be a challenge. Yeah, a challenge for who, Miriam? Daniel could get pretty heavy. Yes, that is true. We're going to get pretty intense with some of that weird stuff. All right. Seems like Daniel is the consensus here. So we will do the rest of Daniel. Okay. And when I say the rest of Daniel, I have to be specific. We're going to do the rest of the canonical from the Bible Daniel because the Catholic Bible, Daniel has more chapters than our Bible has and a lot of weird stuff. And I don't want to get into any of that. So, all right. Do I have any more? Nobody text voted. All right. Well, you guys can be like that. All right. I'm turning my phone off. It's off now. All right. So that's what we're going to do. We will finish Daniel. We'll do Daniel's be like 7 through 12, I think it is. And look at some of the stuff that's in there. We're going to talk about spirit princes and weird creatures. And it's going to be all kinds of fun. It's amazing that when King Nebuchadnezzar threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, and then he forgot how many people he threw in because he was counting more than he thought he did. That honestly is one of the least weird parts of this whole book. So, all right, friends. So that's where we are. All right. Hey, Linda Burkholder. For those of you just joining us, I know a couple people just jumped in. Because I don't have the books here yet, they are en route. I'm hoping to have them this week. We are going to finish the book of Daniel for the next 4 or 5 days and hopefully start the Christian Atheist then sometime later this week when I can get some books out. So, there we go. So, All right, well, we'll come back and talk about that in a minute. I want to do some Daniel because Daniel's a pretty popular book. Yet of all the things that we read where you all were going, oh, I knew that story. I knew Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and I knew the phrase writing on the wall. I didn't realize it came from Daniel, but so I knew all that. Well, there's one very, very famous story from Daniel. And Joe Sutton sent me a GIF of the Cowardly Lion. I don't think that was the lion that was in the den with Daniel, but it could have been. And but that's what we're going to look at tonight. So I kind of have been setting up with you guys as throughout the course of this study how much Daniel just keeps being successful, keeps winning so much that, and as you know, successful people breed jealousy, and Daniel absolutely did that. He bred a lot of jealousy amongst the astrologers and so forth. And they, after years of this, in fact, as much as, 60 some years, because we don't know how much, historically, we can go back and look. Many of you probably have study Bibles who will say a little more specifically. But the amount of time between Nebuchadnezzar, when Daniel kind of showed up on the scene, you got Belshazzar, we read about yesterday, and he didn't last very long. And then you've got Darius the Mede, who's now the guy. We can go back and speculate how long Daniel been around. It's been like 60 some years, which is quite a long time. That the Persian Empire and the Empire of the Medes and all this stuff has been growing and getting stronger and bigger, and we're kind of waiting for the big guy to come in and take over, and that's Cyrus the Persian. The Bible really likes Cyrus the Persian. He's a foreigner, but again, much like we talked about with the Babylonians earlier, the Persians stole a page from their playbook and said, okay, so we got these Jews in here, these Hebrews, and we'd really like them to cooperate, and they're really only asking for a king from the lineage of some guy named David, and that doesn't seem like that much to ask. So if we get this guy named David and we point a sword at the back of his head and make him do whatever we say, the name seemed to be pretty okay with that. And for a while that worked. Not forever, but for a while it did. So, and that's what Cyrus kind of figured out. So since Cyrus put a descendant of King David back on the throne, man, the Bible's got all kind of nice things to say about King Cyrus, even though kind of like Nebuchadnezzar, Cyrus may not have been as great of a guy as we thought he was, because while he may have done some good things, he also did some bad things. So, but that's who we're kind of waiting on. So Cyrus is coming, but right now, a guy named Darius the Mede. Jump in the comments. So anybody tell me, have you ever heard of Darius the Mede? Jump in the comments. I want to know, has anybody ever heard that name before? Darius the Mede. Nope. I got two no's. Anybody else? Darius the Mede. Anybody ever heard of him? Darius the Mede. And a couple more no's coming in here. Okay. I never had either. I mean, outside of the book of Daniel, I don't know that he shows up too often. He may get a passing mention occasionally. So, okay, so the pastor in the group has heard of him. No surprise there. But, yeah, he's not exactly somebody we run into very often. Was he one of the hobbits? Joe Sutton has not heard of Darius the Mede, but nice try, though. And so, yeah, so y'all get the idea here that he's not a major player. And as you're going to find out, much like Belshazzar about last night, he ain't around long. So, okay. So, verse 1. Darius the Mede decided to divide the kingdom into 120 provinces, and he appointed a high officer to rule over each province. So, when the Medes came in and took over, they kind of used the same idea as the United States used. Probably from my dad, but sorry, Marge. I think you got a few typos in there. So Scott Moran has heard of him. Daniel, Darius, and the Lion. Oh, I didn't know that was a children's musical. Okay. So, anyways, and Darius kind of used the same strategies the United States did. Uh, Contrary to popular belief, the United States of America is actually a federation of states. That's what we are. The idea of the federal government running the show is actually not how our country was set up. And and that's kind of the way Darius did it too. He said, there's too much area here. There's too much to do. There's, too many things happening, that the northern part's different from the southern part of my kingdom. So instead of me making these sweeping rules and laws and stuff, I'm sorry, I'm on Daniel chapter 6. Sorry, I should have said it. Daniel chapter 6. Instead of me making one declaration that's going to go for a whole kingdom, I'm going to allow these officials that I'm going to appoint, much like governors of states, are going to be there, and they're going to kind of run the show for them. Now they're going to report back to me, and I'm certainly going to have a say in what's going on. But the idea is that each one of these provinces or states are going to, not necessarily be a nation unto themselves. We're all going to be connected, but only loosely, and that will be a federation, much like the United States is today. So, and that's how they wanted it to function. So, okay, so in these provinces, these states that Darius was setting up, he also wanted to have a group of advisors, House of Representatives, Senate, pick one. But he wanted to have a group of advisors, and so he chose, my English is leaving me. He selected some people to be a part of that group of advisors. And he got them all together to, say, hey, I hear this from this province, and I hear that from over here, and Darius can then be a part of what's going on. It really was kind of a wise way to put this together, as long as he can keep the federation strong. So as he's going through and selecting people to serve on this, here's who he got. He got the king also chose Daniel and 2 other as administrators to supervise the high officers and protect the king's interests. So these guys were kind of in charge of the governors, or the high officers, or whatever the title was. But he was the one then who would go around and maybe travel through the provinces, see what's going on, find out if one of the provinces has a need, something that the federation could help, something like that. So that's what that's what Daniel's job was, which means, since most of these provinces didn't necessarily always stay to themselves. They were pretty self-contained because, again, they couldn't go jump in a high-performance Volkswagen Beetle like I can and go cruise all over Ohio. For them traveling 5 or 6 miles was quite a deal, where we do that just to run an errand. That to them was a big deal. So these provinces traveling around would take some doing, and So he would have these guys travel around. That means Daniel and the other 2 administrators, again, I don't know that they're even named, but they became very well known. So as you can imagine, when you're at the top, that leaves a lot of bullseyes on you that people want to get you, because, everybody's itching for power. Politics have not changed in 6,000 years. So everybody wants to be the guy on top, and that's kind of what everybody wanted. And in order to be one of the guys on the top, you got to get rid of one of the guys on the top. So that's what we're about to find out. Verse 3, chapter 6, verse 3. Daniel soon proved himself more capable than all the other administrators and high officers. Because of Daniel's great ability, the king made plans to place him over the entire empire. That should sound vaguely familiar. It's kind of the same thing that happened to Joseph when he was in Egypt. So Daniel was super qualified. He was very good at his job. Everything was going well. The king was incredibly pleased with what he saw happening. And rumors started going around that, maybe the king's like, maybe I'll sit back and I'll let my boy Daniel take care of some of this stuff. Daniel was better at it anyways, and I can focus on being king, and then Daniel can just run the show because that's what he's doing anyways. Okay, so as you can imagine, when one guy starts to rise to the top, everybody else has to rise to the challenge. So verse 4, then the other administrators and high officers began searching for some fault in the way Daniel was handling his government affairs. But they couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn. He was faithful, always responsible, and completely trustworthy. I mean, in a nutshell, Daniel served Darius faithfully, did his job faithfully. He didn't cut corners. He didn't steal. He didn't lie. He had integrity. Honestly, all the stuff that you would want in a leader. I mean, that's what Daniel's doing. He's taken the high road. He's built the provinces are doing well. The governors feel supported. Everybody's happy. Nobody's making accusations against Daniel, at least nothing that would stick. Even under heavy scrutiny, Daniel's job performance stays strong. Everybody, kind of likes the guy. So everything's going well. And his enemies, who, again, it's not that they think they could do a better job. They just want power because who doesn't like power, I guess. So they wanted the perks, I guess, that went with this job. So they were searching for some way to tear him down. Again, politics have not changed in 6,000 years. So they were looking for some way to tear him down. You know how Fox News today criticized Obama in the same way CNN criticizes Trump. It's all the same stuff. It's just different players in each role, but it's all the same. And again, I mean, here it is in the Bible, friends. Been going on a long time. So, okay. So after, giving great scrutiny to the job that Daniel was doing, they finally had to get together and concede, okay, this guy's beyond reproach. And instead of saying, isn't it great that King Darius is going to put such an honorable man in charge and somebody we can all trust and feel good about, instead of thinking that's a good thing, they say, all right, time to go second level. That, my friends, is what power-hungry people do. Again, we see this every single day. And it's been amplified here these last 2 months during the shutdown to a sickening degree. All right, verse 5. So they concluded, our only chance of finding grounds for accusing Daniel will be in connection with the rules of his religion. Now, I told you, where did this story start? Way back when we started looking at Daniel, where did it start? Daniel was a refugee from a conquered culture. He was part of a genocide where they were dragging in the best and the brightest young men and trying to convert them to be Babylonian. Now, you remember what Daniel said. Look, I'll study the stuff. I'll do what you say, but I'm not breaking the dietary laws. I'm not going to do it. So I want vegetables and water. I'm not eating the pork chops. I'm not eating the stuff with clothed hooves that choose to cut or whatever the dietary law was. Daniel says, I ain't doing it. So he has kept himself pure for like 60 some years now. And everybody knows it. He has a reputation. The king, King Darius, seems to have no issue with that. He doesn't care that Daniel practices his own religion. I mean, why would he? I mean, holy cow, the guy's knocking it out the park every day. So they didn't want to. They knew that the only way they were going to do this is they had to do something in opposition to his faith, which at the moment they realized that Daniel wasn't doing anything illegal. There was nothing illegal in what Daniel was doing. Nowhere did it say he couldn't practice his faith. And, Teresa, I'm sure people who are too hungry for power, again, 6,000 years, people who are too hungry for power only want that power to serve themselves. Here's a little rule that I've learned through the years that I will share with you for free. Whenever you've got a role that needs to be done, there's a job that needs to be done, and the job brings with it a need for a lot of responsibility. It brings with it a lot of authority. but it brings a lot of responsibility and will require a person of great integrity. I will tell you right now, the last thing you want to do is to give that job to somebody who's clamoring for it. That's the last place you want to go, because it's the person who has integrity and may be intimidated by the job. That's the person you want doing it. Because I'll tell you right now, people who are too hungry for jobs with a lot of power have a motive. And if you don't have a clear understanding what that motive is, they will hurt you. And Teresa's kind of nailed on that, and that's exactly what's going on here. I'm sure these guys want to do something dishonest. Odds are Darius knows it. In fact, Darius is about to find out in full living color. And I'm pretty sure that Daniel, given as smart as that guy was, he was on to him too. And so you want to be very careful about people who want, have hunger for power, hunger for authority, hunger to be in charge. Man, always be careful about that, because that can lead to disaster. I've always said that in the church. I know a lot of you, I don't mean like Wayne Street. I mean like the United Methodist Church, like conference and district level, or district and conference level. The people that I've served under, senior pastors and district superintendents, the ones who did not, what's the word I'm looking for? Campaign. The ones who did not campaign for the job were the best. The ones who really wanted the job and worked and campaigned to get it, not as good. It didn't go as well, because I think it's the people who don't want it realize how much work it's going to be, how thankless it's going to be, and how it's actually going to be to everyone else's benefit and not their own. So think about that when it comes to people who want power. They just want to be careful about that. All right, that's to the side. Okay, so here we are. So they made a conclusion that the only way they were going to trap Daniel is they're going to have to do something in opposition to his faith, because the guy had deep faith. Why they didn't connect the fact that Daniel was a great guy to the fact that he was a deeply faithful man, why they didn't draw that parallel, who knows? But clearly those two things go hand in hand. All right, so chapter 6, verse 6. So the administrators and high officers went to the king and said, "Long live King Darius! We are all in agreement. We administrators, officials, high officers, advisors, and governors." You think that's true? I'm going to stop right there. Do you think that statement was true? We are all in agreement. In the history of our world, clear back to the Garden of Eden, do you think there's ever been a political move to which everyone was in agreement? Sue says nope, and she's correct. All right. There has never been a political move, because I'll tell you right now, we already know one person's not going to be in favor of it. We know for a fact. And that guy's name is Daniel, is not going to be in favor of it. So for them to say everybody's in favor of it is buzz. That is an incorrect statement. But, who wants a little thing like the truth to get in the way of an agenda, right? I mean, who wants that? So verse 7. We are all in agreement, we administrators, officials, high officers, advisors, and governors, that the king should make a law that will be strictly enforced. Bad squeaky wheels are always in agreement, usually. Okay, so we all agree that the king should make a new law, and we think this law is going to be awesome. Here we go. Give orders that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions. Darius, we think you are just fantastic. My word. I mean, you got this great leader, and you're articulate, and you're handsome, and you have good hygiene, and you throw great parties, and you have, you're a fancy dresser, and you sing well, and you're a good cook. You have great taste in wine. Oh my word, it's just getting so bad. It's like, I mean, that's kind of where we're at, right? So they're really buttering this guy out. We think we shouldn't pray nobody except for you. Now, what is the point of this? I mean, they're stroking the guy's ego, and again, stupid people love their ego stroked, and that's kind of where Darius is. So he decides to make this law without asking his number one advisor. Remember, Daniel was one of the top three. Clearly, Daniel was not in the room when this was done, because Daniel would be like, I have an objection. So these guys are smart enough to know not to say this when Daniel's there. So Daniel's probably out on one of his trips, out visiting the provinces, doing his job. And so they all run in there, and obviously not doing their job. And there with the king going, man, King, you are so awesome. You know what we should do? We should just have a 30-day Darius-a-thon. And during this Darius-a-thon, everybody should pray only to you, because you're just like God. I mean, that little G in front of that God is just awesome, right? Yeah. Amy says she would be scared to go into a lion's den. I think that's appropriate. And these are all important qualities for leadership, I guess, depending on what kind of leader you're looking at there, Tim. So they get him buttered up, and Darius is like, oh my gosh, a Darius-a-thon sounds awesome. All right, everybody, let's hear it. What do you think of the name of this, the Darius-a-thon? You guys like that? Tell me that's a good name. I just came up with that on the spot. I like that. Have a 30-day Darius-a-thon. So, all right, let's hear for the Darius-a-thon. Anybody in on that? Okay, so they're going to have a 30-day Darius-a-thon where they can't pray to anybody but Darius. Why do we do? Why? Who knows? Okay, so except you, your majesty, will be thrown to a dens of lions. Yes! The king replied, hold on. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Thrown to a den of lions. Okay, I'm verse 8. And now, your majesty, issue and sign this law so that it cannot be changed. An official law of the Medes and the Persians that cannot be revoked. So Darius whipped out his pen and signed the law. Darius-a-thon is now all set. So Darius signed the law. Verse 10. But when Daniel learned, now get this. Again, this is going to be in the same vein as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego saying, Nebuchadnezzar, we're going to save you the trouble. We have no intention of following this law. Do what you're going to do. We're not praying to the statue, I think it was. And right in the same vein. So here we go. But when Daniel learned the law had been signed. Okay, so Daniel comes back from his trip, doing his job. And he's reading this law and he's like, what in the heck is this? Okay, so learned he signed the law. Now here's what he did. He went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room, with its windows open toward Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to his God. Apparently, King Darius' signature on this wonderful Darius-a-thon did not do much for him. So not only did he go home and pray, but he knelt down in front of the window. I mean, can't you almost see like Daniel's here praying. He's facing out the window, and then at the end, he's like, how y'all doing down there? Y'all see me? I'm praying. I mean, he's not making any secret that he's not having any intention of doing this. Okay, so they see him praying, and they're like, oh my gosh, we got the guy. We got him. He didn't break any actual law. He only broke the fake law, but it's still a law. Darius' signature is right here, and the Darius-a-thon is going on, so we can't be having this. Okay, so verse 11. Then the officials went together to Daniel's house and found him praying and asking God for help. So they went straight to the king. Man, you gotta love these guys, right? Went straight to the king and reminded him about his law. Again, hear the condescension here. Hear how condescending this is. So they went straight to the king, asking about the law. Did you not sign a law that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except you, your majesty, we thrown into the den of lions. So anybody not participating in the Darius-a-thon gets thrown into the den of lions. I mean, was that not the law that you signed? Yes, the king replied. The decision stands. It's an official law of the Medes and the Persians that cannot be revoked. And they told the king, this man Daniel, one of the captives of Judah. Friends, he had been there for 60 years. Yes, he still practiced his faith, which was wonderful. But let's be honest, this guy was more Persian than Israelite, because he had spent more of his life in Persian culture than he had in Israelite culture. Yes, he maintained his faith. I'm not trying to take that away from him. But, I mean, it'd been a long, long time since he was known as a refugee, considering the fact he was number 3 in the kingdom, and he was in track to become number 1 in the kingdom of the Persians. That man Daniel, one of the captives from Judah, again, they don't describe him as your number 3 guy. One of the captives, he's ignoring you and your law. He still prays to his God 3 times a day. Daniel's a faithful man. It is this kind of single-minded focus that not only got Daniel through all the challenges he faced in his life, but also got him through or helped him rise through the ranks. My friends, there's a reason why this guy's number 3 guy in the kingdom. There's a very good reason why. Because this kind of integrity, this kind of moral underpinning, this kind of faith, amazing. It's amazing. And Daniel knew what this law was, and in 2 seconds, we're going to find out Darius knows what this law was too. It has nothing to do with the Darius-a-thon. It has everything to do with they were jealous of Daniel, and they knew it. They knew what they'd done. Okay, so verse 14. Hearing this, the king was deeply troubled. He tried to think of a way to save Daniel. He spent the rest of the day looking for a way to get Daniel out of this predicament. Again, Daniel not participating in the Darius-a-thon did not bother Darius in any way. Darius honestly probably thought this was a silly thing anyways. I mean, I don't know that. But he deeply regretted not thinking through this. And he really deeply regretted not asking his advisors what he should do. Because clearly Daniel and the other 2 guys, whoever they were, would have said, Darius, what are you doing? A Darius-a-thon is stupid. You know, let's find something else to do. They would have talked him out of it. I mean, even the 2 guys who may not have even been Israelite, even they would have said, Darius, this doesn't make any sense. Let's not do this. So Darius, who now realized he'd been played, was trying to find a way to get Daniel out of this. So all day, Darius is trying to find a way to break this unbreakable law. I mean, I guess, man, signature on a piece of paper in the Medes and the Persians culture was a very big deal. We see the same thing happen in the book of Esther, where there was an edict signed, in the name of the Medes and the Persians, and boy, you cannot revoke those once they're made. So you got 2 books of the Bible where these kind of things take place. So, all right. So the king spent the rest of the day, having his lawyers find some way to break his own law he just signed. Verse 15. In the evening, the men went together to the king and said, Your Majesty, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no law that the king signs can be changed. I mean, what a jerk thing to do. All right. So King Darius now realized that this whole thing had gone wrong. And so here we go. Verse 16. So at last, after a whole day of trying to break his own law, the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. The king said to him, May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you. Darius is rooting for Daniel. Okay? Darius realizes the mistake he made. Now look, I don't know what motives you want to assign to Darius, But let's be honest, Darius knew he was losing a good man. So I'm not saying his motivation is selfish, but it very well could be that Darius was saying, "You bunch of clowns, he's my best guy. Why did you do this? Why did you let me do this? Why didn't somebody talk me out of this?" I mean, you could just hear Darius saying all these things. So, all right. So Darius is there saying, "Daniel, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did this to you. I'm sorry." Interestingly enough, we don't have any words from Daniel here, at least as he goes in. So, all right. So Daniel goes into the den with the lions. Verse 17, a stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed the stone with his own royal seal and the seals of his nobles, who were probably all too willing to put their sign on that. So it was all signed so that no one could rescue Daniel. That stone was going to be there all night. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. King Darius is having one of those moments where he's realizing that a Darius-a-thon was not the funnest idea in the world. He now realized the manipulative schmucks that he's got working for him, and he realizes the just how greedy, how evil power can make people, or even the opportunity to possibly have power. Does bad things to people. And Darius spent all night thinking about that. He knows he got played. He knows that what those guys were suggesting with this Darius-a-thon had nothing to do with how fantastic they thought Darius was. So you can imagine Darius, who has every reason to believe that Daniel's going to be chewed to bits overnight. Darius has reason to be angry with some of these guys. Okay. All right. Okay, verse 18. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. He spent the night doing a practice from Daniel's religion. Fasting was not a part of the culture of the Persians and the Medes. Their religion didn't have any fasting components to it, not like this. So clearly Darius, perhaps, whether or not he was a practicing believer in capital G God, I can't say, at least not at this point. But I think that Darius is starting to realize that that's, he's looking at the quality of his people. Let's look at it that way. Daniel, praise, greatest worker, intense scrutiny that he stands up to. Everybody likes the guy. He's doing a fantastic job. In fact, he was in line to become number one dude over the whole thing. And he was also a believer in the capital G God. Darius went back to his room and had a whole sleepless night thinking about, the guys who were part of our gods. Look what they did. Look how they represented their faith structure. These guys manipulated me. For all intents and purposes, murdered an innocent man. A man that I know personally. He was one of my top 3 advisors. Daniel was wise, did his job well, and they were out to get him for no reason. That's how their God was represented here. Whoever this Persian god was, or whoever, the god of the Medes, whoever it was, that's how they practiced their religion. And you know what? In that night that Darius spent there, he could very well have decided, if that's how that God's people act, I'm out. I want what Daniel's got. Because Daniel's on to something. Daniel represented his capital G God so well that Darius was converted by what Daniel had to say and how Daniel conducted himself, both in his job and in this predicament. For 60 years, Daniel had been serving faithfully. He served Nebuchadnezzar faithfully. He served Belshazzar faithfully. And now he was serving Darius faithfully. So faithfully that all these guys loved him. And these other people who represented this other religion were out to get him for no reason other than their own greed. And Darius that night could very well have decided, I want what Daniel's got. Friends, that's how you witness. That's how you live out your faith. That's how you make a difference in whatever your situation is without saying a word. That's how it's done. That's a clinic on evangelism. That is a clinic on outreach. That is a clinic on representing God well. That is how you do it. Daniel, we have no record, again, well, he may have, but we have no record that he ever went to Darius and said, well, let me tell you why my God's better than all the rest of these guys. He didn't have to. He lived it. Darius saw it. And when Daniel went down to the lion's den and he saw how the other gods were represented by these guys and how Daniel's God was represented by Daniel, King Darius said, to heck with that. And when he went back there, or when he said to Daniel, last thing he said is, may your God protect you, the one that you serve so faithfully. When he went back to his room and had that long, sleepless night, that could very well have been a conversion experience for Darius. And Daniel, to our knowledge, never said a word about it. That, boys and girls, is impressive. And I offer you Daniel as an incredible representation of his God. And friends, I ain't even got to the part of what happens when they roll the stone back. I haven't even got to that part yet. Daniel could very well have gotten eaten by those lions, and his witness would have still stood. They could have looked in there and said, well, we found his big toe. That was all that was left. But the witness and the example that Daniel set would have still affected King Darius amazingly. And that's how you witness. That's how you evangelize. Man, that is how it is done. And thank God, praise God for Daniel. And unlike Job, I'm happy to say God didn't leave Daniel hanging. So let's find out what happened. So verse 18, the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. He refused his usual entertainment and couldn't sleep at all that night. Very early the next morning, you can imagine, very first thing, we didn't have breakfast yet. The king's running down there. The king hurried up, got out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out anguish, Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God whom you serve so faithfully able to rescue you from the lions? You know what's going to happen. But let's stop right here and ask ourselves a question. What do you think Darius expected? Do you think Darius expected a voice from the darkness? Do you think he expected to hear Daniel say, hey, I'm still here? What do you think Darius was expecting? You all know what's going to happen. But let's pretend like we don't know. What do you think Darius expected when he ran down there? What do you think Darius expected to happen? Was Darius expecting to ever see Daniel again? Somebody jump in the comments and tell me. Okay, so Timothy said he expected to find nothing but a big toe. Okay. He was hopeful, but he was concerned. Clearly, he was concerned. He was hopeful. Hopeful is a good word, I think. I think that's what he was. Because remember, it's interesting. Go ahead and jump in the comments and answer my question. But let me just say, it's interesting how the people who were against Daniel, it's interesting how they screwed up. They screwed up in the fact that they made the punishment be he's thrown into the lion's den, he spends the night in there. That's the punishment. What they should have done is said, we're going to throw him off a mountain, or we're going to shoot him with 50 arrows, or we're going to set him on fire. That should have been the sentence. Because honestly, it's not a death sentence. It seems like a death sentence, but technically it's not. If after he spent the night in lion's den, okay, well, go back and pray. Have a nice day, Daniel. I mean, so it wasn't exactly a death sentence. That's how they screwed up. They gave Daniel an out. Now, it's not an out that any of us would be terribly excited to take, but that's how he did. So all right. So you guys think he didn't expect to find him? That's interesting, because he clearly doesn't know. So he was hopeful but unsure. Okay, that seems to be the consensus, and I would agree with that. He was hopeful, but he wasn't sure based on what he says here. So he calls in. He was anticipating the best, Linda. I agree with that. but he was prepared for something bad. Okay. Okay, so Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God whom you serve so faithfully, able to rescue you from the lions? Again, even how he asked the question is interesting. He didn't say, Daniel, are you alive? He said, Daniel, did your God save you? Your capital G God save you? Meaning that if Daniel managed to survive all night in the lion's den, the only way that could have happened is if God did it. So Daniel survived. We're not going to credit the fact that the lions had indigestion or, didn't have enough barbecue sauce or whatever. That's not what they're going to say. If Daniel survived, according to King Darius, the only way that we can credit that is that God did something supernatural here. Verse 21. Two of the greatest words in the book. Daniel answered. Daniel answered. Doesn't matter what he says, he answered. Guys, he answered. He survived. The lions didn't eat him. Didn't tear him apart. Which is amazing. Given it was a den. It wasn't like he was locked in a cage with lions. He went into a lion's den, a place where lions lived. Probably had cubs. And look, friends, I've been running down the towpath here lately quite a bit, and there's Canadian geese out there, and they've got little ones running around. Man, those things are mean. Lions are the same thing. Now, I've had a few of them take off after me out there, and they hiss at you, and they try to peck you and whatever. But, that's a Canadian goose. I'm not exactly afraid of them. They can hiss at me all they want and come after me and try to peck me or whatever. But lions are just as aggressive. So if they had young in there, you better believe they're not going to be happy about, what's his name here. However, Daniel answered. It's a great line. Daniel answered. Verse 21. Long live the king. My God sent his angel. Perhaps the same angel that Nebuchadnezzar saw, or I'm sorry, that Belshazzar saw in the fiery furnace. Perhaps the same one. Who knows? My God sent his angel to shut the lion's mouth so they would not hurt me. For I have been found innocent in his sight. Interestingly enough, I've been found innocent in God's sight, yet, let's be honest, I did break the rule that you signed. I didn't observe the Darius-a-thon, so I didn't do that. But God don't seem too broke up about that either. So, for I have been found innocent in his sight. I have not wronged you, your majesty. The king knows that. The king knows that Daniel didn't do anything. Even though he clearly flagrantly defied this order, his intention was to defy the people who were out to get him, not the king. And the king knew that. King knew that. So, and how do I know the king knew that? Well, let's keep reading. Verse 23. The king was overjoyed. Okay. Normally, when the king is angry and you're going to punish somebody and you throw him into a lion's den, you want the guy to get eaten. That's kind of the point. And when the guy doesn't get eaten, that's kind of awkward. It's kind of like, you throw somebody in jail and you go down and check on them and they're not there. That's kind of what this is. So the king was overjoyed that he survived the night in the lion's den, and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on him. Now that part's not that shocking, because it's not like he fought the lions off. I mean, that's why that detail's in there. It's not like he turned into a gladiator and went in there and fought the lions and killed them all or whatever. The lions are very much alive, and it wasn't that Daniel attacked them or scared them off. I'm not sure how that would work anyways. But the reason we're told he didn't have a scratch on him is he didn't fight him. I mean, he could, if he fought and defeated and killed all the lions somehow because he's Chuck Norris or something, he at least would have gotten scratched or injured or something. But when they pulled him out, not a scratch on him. And remember, the guy's like 80 years old. So he's a little past his physical prime, okay? So he's not exactly in lion fighting shape. So Not a scratch had been found on him, for he had trusted in his God. He didn't go in there with swords and clubs and shields and chairs and whips and all this stuff. He went, like lion tamers at the circus. He went in there with his faith. And that was sufficient. Okay, so now we're going to make a new law. Then the king gave orders to arrest the men who had maliciously accused Daniel. He had them thrown into the lion's den along with their wives and children. Look, apparently the lions aren't eating good people. So tell you what we're going to do. Somebody seems to have stepped out of line here. I'm not sure who it is. We're going to let the lions decide who did it. Yep, today is part of Darius-a-thon is lions get to judge the guilty persons. So they've judged, obviously they judged Daniel to be innocent. So we're going to throw the accusers in and find out. And here's what happens to them. They threw them in the lion's den along with their wives and children, which seems harsh. The lions leapt on them and tore them apart before they even hit the floor of the den. They didn't even hit the ground. All right, I'm not advocating throwing women and children to their deaths. Okay, I'm not advocating that. What I am saying is that the statement that was made here is that the lions became the judge of the guilty and the innocent. The lions judged Daniel to be innocent, therefore he survived. They judged the accusers to be guilty, therefore they did not survive. And in fact, they were judged to be so guilty that even their descendants were wiped. Their names were wiped off the earth. That's what we're told here. So as much as I cringe at this a little bit, y'all see what happened here and why this was done. Because a statement was made this day. What is that statement? Well, let's find out. Verse 25. Then King Darius sent this message to the people of every race, nation, and language throughout the world. Okay? So the prior message to this one was, okay, we are now commencing the Darius-a-thon, and no one will pray to anyone except to me for 30 days. Okay, we found out that didn't really work out the way we wanted it to, so now we're going a different way, and here's the way we're going. Peace and prosperity to you. I decree that everyone throughout my kingdom should tremble with fear before the God of Daniel. You think Darius was converted? For he is the living God, and he will endure forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed. His rule will never end. He rescues and saves his people. He performs miracles, signs, and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. Think Darius, that sleepless night did some good for Darius? Darius was converted, just like Nebuchadnezzar was converted. So Nebuchadnezzar lost his mind, and through that insanity and return, being guided by Daniel, he came to faith. Darius lost his mind because he was led astray by these advisors who were giving him extremely poor advice. He was guided by Daniel, came back, and he came to faith. Friends, Daniel is the great evangelist. I know when we think of evangelism, we always think of like Peter and Paul and some of the work in the New Testament. But dude, let's give some props to Daniel. He converted two foreign kings from foreign powers who were occupying the promised land at this time. That's pretty incredible. And you can imagine that during the reign of the Persians, or I'm sorry, the Babylonians and the Persians and the Medes, through all that time, worship of God, Christianity obviously didn't exist at that time, but the worship of the big G God was tolerated because of Daniel. The what we know today as the Jewish people, the Israelites, the Hebrew people, however you want to look at that, they were sustained because Daniel was in the king's hip pocket. We have Christianity today. I mean, what Daniel did facilitated the existence of what we know as the Jewish faith today, which produced Jesus Christ. We have that today because of the work that Daniel did. He got tolerance for his people. So let's give some props to Daniel during a time when things were really bad. The Jerusalem was destroyed. It was occupied by a foreign power. Other powers were coming in. They were stealing stuff out of the temple they shouldn't have been doing. They were belittling people. They were killing people. But because Daniel stepped into Babylonian culture, as what we would refer to as a missionary, but maintained his faith while working his way through that culture, got his way to the top, and managed to sustain the existence of of the people of God through a very difficult time. So let's give some props to Daniel. You got it, Tim. He doesn't get a lot of credit as an evangelist, but he converted 2 kings, foreign kings, not Israelite kings. Nebuchadnezzar was a Babylonian. Darius was a Mede. He converted both of them. That's an impressive resume in and of itself, let alone everything else the guy did. So Daniel is a very pivotal character in the Old Testament. He did more than just survive a night in the lion's den. He did a lot. So it's a fun study. And Daniel, throughout the course of his life and all these things that were going on, continue having visions. So let's shift gears here just for a second. Since we're going to go on reading about Daniel, and we're gonna finish his book as we're waiting for the Christian Atheist books to get here. We're going to learn about some of the visions and how they functioned and what they did and why he had them. And Daniel had a very clear understanding of spiritual warfare, and that's what we're going to be reading about for the next couple of days till we finish this book. He had a very clear understanding of spiritual warfare, and he, I think he saw. I don't think I'm pretty sure that he saw all of his conflicts as spiritual conflicts, including a fiery furnace his buddies went into, including interpreting a dream for a king that he did for Nebuchadnezzar, including telling Nebuchadnezzar, "I'm sorry, you're going to go crazy. I hope that's okay," including kind of not observing the Darius-a-thon, and all these things Daniel did, and he did them to preserve God's people. So props to Daniel. Props to the guy, really, because it was a very dark time for the people of God, and quite frankly, without Daniel in the hip pocket of the 2 kings, he was in the hip pocket of the Babylonian king who was overthrown. He survived through Belshazzar, who tried to torch his 3 friends, and they survived. And eventually they come to Darius, and Darius was converted to the point that he sent out a proclamation saying, capital G God is a pretty darn good God, if you ask me. It's impressive. So I'll have to print off where we're going tomorrow, but tomorrow we're going to start looking at Daniel's visions, and we're going to have conversations about spiritual warfare, and that's Daniel's, the second half of Daniel, kind of his whole thing. It's going to be a dramatic shift in tone from this kind of history lesson that we've had these past couple of days. It's going to be a bit of shifted tone, probably go not completely like Job, but in that direction. And there'll be some historical context that we're going to need to look at, and I'll go over that with you. But should be an interesting conversation about the nature of spiritual warfare. And if any of you think that spiritual warfare does not exist anymore, please come back the next couple of nights anyways, because I'm going to talk you into that it does. So, all right, very good. Anybody else got anything for the good of the order here tonight? I'm looking forward to being with you tomorrow morning for First Light at 8:30. I hope you all got the link for that. If you don't, let me know, and I'll get links for you. And I hope that many of you will be able to join us for a parking lot service for Awaken tomorrow at 10:45. We'll be here for that, and looking forward to having any of you who feel safe enough to come out. We will be live streaming the service tomorrow on Facebook. Jess has graciously agreed to be our Facebook Live person, so I know it's not going to be the highest quality video, and but it's going to be put out there on Wayne Street's page and also Jess Skinner's page. So if you guys want to follow her, You should be able to see it on there. Yes, please give this video a thumbs up. Thank you, Amy. That keeps us relevant in the search engines and helps Wayne Street's word get out. If we got people liking our videos, you can close the live chat for just a second and click that thumbs up. I would appreciate that too. And all right, anybody got any questions about tomorrow? I know any of you who were here last week know that I preached from the rock. Don't know that I'm going to stand on the rock this week. That was more challenging than I had anticipated. So I may be down on the ground this week. No, Jess, you give good quality. I'm just talking. It won't be quite the sound quality that we have normally for when we use the camera with the hook to the sound system, because you're going to be free roaming on your phone, not hooked to our sound system. But you're perfectly good quality, Jess. So thank you for all you do. Everybody tell Jess, say, hey, Jess, you're awesome. Get in the chat. Say, hey, Jess, you're awesome. And Tim doesn't know what he's talking about. Just go ahead and say that right now. Everybody jump in the chat and tell that, because Jess, I heard Jess's feelings. Yeah, it was a near miss, wasn't it, Jess? Everybody get in the chat right now. Tell Jess she's awesome. Come on. Come on, everybody. Help me out. Have my back on this. Oh, keep it coming, guys. Come on, keep it coming. That's right. Everybody tell Jess he's awesome. Come on. Try and get a few more out of this. Jess, are you feeling better yet? I need to know if I've made amends yet, because I don't need to get punched in the eye tomorrow and have a black eye for church. So, yeah, I tried, Jess. I really was trying. So it's the best I got. So, hang on, they're still coming, Jess. Oh, Jess is awesome sauce. That's good. Awesome, Jess. Yeah. All right. Well, you're welcome for the laugh. And I'm going to go out and see if that duck wants to join us for church tomorrow, since he's right out there where we're going to be tomorrow. I'll go see if he's still there. So, all right, everybody. Hey, as always, you honor me with your presence here tonight. Thank you so much for spending your evening with me. And I'm looking forward to being in worship tomorrow. We're going to, we've been looking at Daniel, but we're going to shift and look at Ruth for church tomorrow. That will be a, I'll check on that duck. I'm going to be preaching on Ruth tomorrow. So we'll be continuing with another seed tomorrow. So I hope you'll be here. Great. So I love you all very much. We'll be here tomorrow morning, and we'll be here tomorrow night. So everybody can come by and be a part of that. Looking forward to seeing you. Everybody have a great night. And go wash your hands.